page 44. Did we get to 44a? 44a. Yes. 44a. So the Gemara that we learned yesterday was we mentioned this machlokes of the argument about the mitzvah of arava. Is it do you uh, just stand the arava up by the altar, or do you actually go around um, the altar? Did they go around the altar in the Beis Hamikdash with the arava as well? Did they hold the arava when they would go around the mizbeach? So it's a question of um, how much of the arava ceremony, like what was included in the arava ceremony. Was it just basically standing the arava up next to the mizbeach, or did it also include like going around with when they would be makif the mizbeach, they would encircle the mizbeach, they would go around with the arava as well. So the Gemara here says that it's a machlokes. We have Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nosa in the name of Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Elazar said Belulav. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nosa in the name of Rabbi Chanina said Bar Rava. Rabbi Nachman, Rabbi Bar Ravuas, Bar Rava. They would go around holding the arava. So there's different opinions about how it was done. And then the Gemara tried to prove it from Abaye tried to prove from a brisa. He says it's similar to that the mitzvah of arava is similar to lulav. That it's that the arava you can't just be yotze by just standing it up. It's he says. You see that it's the mitzvah of chibot, of like waving it, and according to the Rambam, it means banging it on the ground. That there was more to the arava than just standing it up. It involved waving it, banging it on the ground, and so the conclusion was that the mitzvah of arava is not only zakifa, but it is also this concept of natila, taking it, and the argument that the Gemara had with whether it's natila or zakifa, it had ramifications because the Gemara was trying to figure out why nowadays do we not say, let's say that it should be doicha the Shabbos, and why isn't it doicha Shabbos nowadays, at least in Eretz Yisrael? So one answer was, well, it never happens to fall on Shabbos. But then the other opinions say it does happen. It happens sometimes that it falls, the seventh day of Sukkot falls on Shabbos. And we find that it's not. Why not? Why isn't it doicha? So the answer that the Gemara wants to give, and that's what this whole discussion is based on, is that maybe the arava that we do today is very different than the arava in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. In the time of the Beis Hamikdash, the arava was all only about zakifa, and the arava that we do today is a very different arava concept because we don't have a mizbeach, an altar. So our arava is falls under a different. It's not exactly a remembrance of the arava and the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore to say that you should be doicha Shabbos and it should push off the rules of Shabbos so that in order that people will know the importance of arava and so on, that we're not going to go that far because it's a very different arava. If we do the same thing that they did in the Beis Hamikdash and that was the mitzvah, fine. But if we're doing it very different, then it won't be a remembrance, and we're not going to accomplish anything, and therefore it's not doicha Shabbos. But now that the Gemara concludes and says, well, it's a very different type of arava. If that's so, if it's a very different type of arava, then we would have an answer. But that's not the conclusion. The conclusion is it's the same arava. It's chibut. They would do some type of a waving with the arava. So if they're doing this, going around the mizbeach and holding it and waving it or banging it, so it's not just standing up the arava. So we are actually doing very similar to what was done in the Beis Hamikdash, and our arava is what was done there as well with the chibut, this whatever the term chibut means. Again, this is a machloikas rishonim what the chibut is, but we do similar to the way they did. We should also be doicha Shabbos in today's day and age. It should be doicha Shabbos. So the conclusion of the Gemara was no, it's not doicha Shabbos, because since we in Bavel, outside of Israel, we are not going to be doicha Shabbos because we don't know the exact day of Yom Tov. So therefore, in Eretz Israel, they're also not going to be doicha Shabbos because we don't want to be doing things differently and being like different groups. The famous term in the Hebrew is called agudos, bundles and bundle, different groups of people here doing this way and groups of people there doing that way. That we don't do. And this is, of course, a topic of discussion. When is it allowed? When isn't it allowed? Should each city really have, is there, what does the Gemara really mean over here? Because these are different cities, so maybe that should be permissible. It's a very different area. Within a same city, is it appropriate to have different minhagim? The concept of minhagim and doing things differently is a big topic. And this Gemara seems to be a very blanket rule that if Bavel can't do the doicha Shabbos on Hoshana Rabbah, so Eretz Yisrael also can't do it. It's a topic of discussion, commentaries, and so why should that be? Why would we go by? What's wrong with having different cities that are not next to each other? Why should it fall under this category? But that's the way the Gemara answers it. And then the Gemara says, what about lulav? Lulav, so that was Hoshana Rabbah. Now, what about lulav? So lulav, Yom Tov Rishon, that falls on Shabbos, the first day of Sukkot, if it falls on Shabbos. So the Gemara was, until now, of the understanding that in Eretz Yisrael, it is doicha. Outside of Israel, it's not doicha Shabbos, but in Israel, it is doicha Shabbos. That was the understanding, that it's going to push off Shabbos. And why don't we say the same thing for Arava, that at least in Eretz Yisrael, it should be doicha Shabbos? We find lulav as doicha Shabbos. The Gemara says that no, it's not doicha Shabbos. That was the top of page 44a, that lulav is not really doicha Shabbos. That if it falls on Shabbos, we don't shake the lulav. And the reason is because if in Bavel they don't do it, even in Eretz Yisrael, they also don't do it. And we don't want there to be agudos, different groups. So then the Gemara says, well, we had a proof that they used to, it was doicha Shabbos, not only in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, because we had two Mishnahs. One Mishnah talked about bringing your lulav to the Beis Hamikdash. The other Mishnah talked about bringing your lulav to the shul. And we said, one's in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, one is after the time of the Beis Hamikdash. After the time of the Beis Hamikdash, even though in Bavel, outside of Israel, they're not going to shake the lulav because they don't know the days and so on, and it's not doicha Shabbos. But in Eretz Yisrael, but the understanding was that there would be a shaking of the lulav after the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed. So even on Shabbos. So that's how we had answered. That's how we had assumed. So the Gemara says, no. After the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, there's no more shaking the lulav. on Shabbos, even on the first day. And this Gemara sort of retracts what we assumed until now. We had like an understanding until now that they did override the Shabbos. The Gemara here says no. After the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, no more. We don't make different groups. If Babel doesn't do it, Eretz Yisrael also doesn't do it. And the difference between the two Mishnahs was that one Mishnah is talking about, they're both talking about in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, and one was talking about in the Beis Hamikdash, and one was talking about Bigvulin outside of the Beis Hamikdash. They would bring their lulav to shul before Shabbos, and they would shake the lulav. Now Rashi does say, and what Rashi's bothered with is, so think about it. Before the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, people didn't live in Eretz. People lived far away, let's say. So what happened then? They would bring their lulav to shul. They would shake lulav on Shabbos. So they didn't want to transgress Shabbos by, they bring it to shul. They made sure not to carry it on Shabbos, of course. Bring it to shul. So what about the people that live far away? What about those people? They don't know what their Yom Tov is. So in the Beis Hamikdash, they know when Yom Tov is. It overrides Shabbos. Time of the Beis Hamikdash, it overrides Shabbos. The people that are not going to be in the Beis Hamikdash, but they know what time when Yom Tov is, it overrides Shabbos. They bring it to their shul. They bring their lulav to shul. Now, what about people who don't live nearby? So they're not sure if it's today's Yom Tov or tomorrow's Yom Tov. So for them, it's not going to be Deicha Shabbos. Oh, we're stuck again with, now we have Agudas. We got people in Eretz Yisrael doing one way. Beis Hamikdash, Eretz Yisrael, close to Eretz Yisrael, they're doing one way, and everyone else is doing another way. Agudas. So Rashi answers this question. He says, no. In the time of the Beis Hamikdash, everyone lived near the Beis Din, and they knew when it was the month, and it's only after the destruction that we have this problem. Which basically Rashi's saying is not that everyone really lived there, but there might be individuals that don't know. But the majority, the large group, there was the groups of people, they knew when it was. And therefore, we don't have to worry about it. After the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, then it's not Deicha Shabbos because we have groups of people living in different, like we have communities in each place. That's where it's a problem, where it's Agudos. So the fact that before, in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, there might be some people who maybe will live in an area where they don't know what their Yom Tov is. So for them, it's not a problem that they're not gonna be overriding Shabbos. Yes, Jeffrey.
So we know that when they still had people coming to witness the moon, that they sent messengers even to Bavel to know when the holiday began. So by the seventh day of the holiday, they all knew it was the correct day. They had signals, they had different methods. And if you look at in the Hoshanos, we have a special poem for Shabbos, and it goes over all the laws of Shabbos. And this is what it says. Keoshato kibut aravo Shabbos madchim. Murabios motzaliso mizbeach manifim. So they are talking about exactly this Gemara, and it was amongst the whole list of the things that we do on Shabbos. Okay, when years ago I looked at it and said, why is it different on Shabbos? And we read this poem, so everybody should take a look because you only read it one day, and it's very long, and people rush, so they're more interested in walking around than saying the poem. But it's really interesting. It goes through all the laws of Shabbos, and it specifically reminds you that there was this time when Chibut Arava Shabbos Madchim.
So it's in the davening of the Hoshana Rabbah. On Hoshana Rabbah, there's a small paragraph.
No, on Shabbos of Sukkot.
Oh, it's said on the Shabbos of Sukkot.
Right.
Oh, in some type of a piyut, like an extra edition?
Yes. Well, the other days we say Kershata Elim Beludi Moch. It's an alphabetic poem. Okay? There's one Keoshata all the other days when we march around with the lulav. Okay, then we come back to our seats and then we read Kol Shata Elim before we say the bracha at the end. Okay?
Right. So we
On
don't say
Shabbos-
that stuff on Shabbos.
on Shabbos,
In our
we don't-
minhag, we don't.
we say a different Kol Shata, a
Uh-huh.
parallel
Okay.
poem, and it's
Uh-huh.
about all the laws of Shabbos and emphasizing that we do things differently in Shabbos. But you could study; it's a summary of all the rules.
Yeah. Interesting, Jeffrey. Because in my Nusach Hari, we don't say anything on the Shabbos of Sukkot. I don't know what if Sephardic do. What you're quoting is an Ashkenazic siddur, probably, right? Ashkenaz.
Yes, but
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can't imagine this was originally composed.
No. Right. Whoever composed it, fine. I'm just saying, like the minhag
Yes, and it's long.
the
It's long
Hari.
because a lot of it's an alphabetic
Right.
thing, okay? And
Uh-huh.
they tell you Aleph, Beis, and
Right.
and etc.
Okay, nice. I'll take a look. Yeah, I'm going to take a look. Now about what you said earlier, first, which is seemingly a good question. How did it work? Why is the Gemara so concerned about? Because we don't know what day Yom Tov is, therefore it's not going to be Doicha Shabbos, right? That's the understanding. So what does the Gemara mean? Your question is a question on the Gemara,
Right.
and the Gemara, the Gemara had said that Kivan de Anan loy dochinon, since it's a suffix, what day Yom Tov is. So therefore, in Eretz Yisrael, we don't know what day the Yom Tov is. So what you're asking is, it would seem that by that day, it shouldn't be a suffix anymore. It should already be. We should already know by the seventh day. They already know what day Yom Tov is, which really is a general question. What you're asking, not only on our Gemara, because as you know, we celebrate Simchas Torah also a second day. So it's not only Hoshana Rabbah that your question is on with our Gemara, it's really on our practice of having a second day Yom Tov of Hoshana, of Simchas Torah, of Shmini Shel Pesach. What you're asking is, were there communities that were too far that didn't get the information? Now,
but there's nothing you take the last days, except for the Arava, which the Gemara is talking about, some Chosari. There's nothing we take.
No, but why do we have to celebrate it? Why is there even a celebration? Why are we doing a Sveika D'Yoma? Why are we adding on a day if, according to
it's
Jeffrey,
one of them.
It's much later.
If we know what day Yom Tov is, so why does Sukkot and Pesach have an extra day? In other words, both Sukkot and Pesach start on the 15th day of the month.
Right.
By that time, there was some amount of time that they had till they were able to find out what day Yom Tov was. Now, not only the 15th, okay, fine. The 15th, we'll say there's a second day Yom Tov because we're not sure yet. We're still thinking. But what about Jeffrey saying by the time Shvi Hoshana Rabbah comes, for sure everyone knew what day Yom Rosh Chodesh was. By that time, for sure they knew. If that's true, then why do we have a second day of
because you had a first day. If you have a first day, you have to have a second day.
Well, there is a term like that in the Gemara. It says Shaloi Lashanes es Hamayados, that even Shavuos, we don't want to make a difference. L'chalik bein Hamayados, we don't want to make a difference. But I don't think they use that term for Shmini Shel Pesach or Simchas Torah. So it must be that there were places maybe that didn't have the. I don't know. I have to look it up. It's an interesting question you're asking. I don't know the practical side of it.
But Simchas Torah is what we do on Simchas Torah was added later on. They moved the readings of the Torah to start after Sukkot. It wasn't necessarily the way.
Why is it a day of Yom Tov? Again, why do we have an extra day Yom Tov of Simchas Torah? Why?
But first you had the extra day, and secondly, you made it into Simchas Torah. It wasn't.
Right. Okay, yeah. No, I'm not worried about the Simchas Torah part of it. I'm wondering why is the Yom Tov? Why do we have to be careful? According to you, everyone knew what their Yom Tov was. Let me just see if over here if they mention anything about when, what time, what date did they reach? Did they reach these places?
They sent out from Rosh Chodesh. So most places they could reach before Yom Tov in the first 2 weeks of the month.
But if you have a problem with the first day, then everything from that point on has to be pushed back by 1 day.
Right,
which means that Shmini Atzeret, which would normally be the day, the 8th day of that entire Yom Tov period, would also have to be pushed to become the 9th day. And so that's how Simchat Torah came about.
No, because they had 2 weeks to get there. They sent out the messengers from Rosh Chodesh. They had 2 weeks to get there before the 15th. So in most cases, they could get a message through before the holiday began.
I think that in the old days they used to use the lighting the fires from one mountain to the other until somebody went and played a game on that, and that screwed up that way of dealing.
Correct. But the Mishnah says that they sent people to go on the road.
I think that was after the fact. And then what happens? When you're no longer your own sovereign state?
So eventually, that's right. So eventually, they had to make a calendar. When they made a calendar, they made very sure that the Hoshana Rabbah would never fall on Shabbos.
Okay, but that was
because they wanted to do the ritual.
But that's outside of Eretz Yisrael. And that by that time, you've already said that if you're outside of Eretz Yisrael, there's always going to be a suffix yom. Therefore, you have the second day that is instituted.
Correct.
Okay, so once you've already done that, then you have an extra day. What do you do? So in Eretz Yisrael, we know that Shmini Atzeret is an extremely long day. It's at least 5 or 6 hours in shul to cover the Torah readings and
all the later things that were added.
And
Yizkor
and everything else. But here in the outside of Eretz Yisrael, you don't have to do it so that you spend 5 hours or 6 hours in shul. So therefore, you split whatever you have between the 2 days.
But those things were all invented later on.
I see it quoted. It's a Gemara Rosh Hashanah, Daf Chaf. So that would be the place for us to look up, the details. So it's an interesting question, Jeffrey. But your question is not specifically on our Gemara. It's really on the whole concept of Simchas Torah and Shmini Shel Pesach. So it's more broader than limited to and when you simply learn the Gemara, you just assume that they obviously were places where they did not have this information by that time, and because of that, it's considered a suffix. We aren't Yadinan b'kibur diyarcha. There is a concept. I will tell you this. There is a concept that's mentioned that even now, even when we know when Yom Tov is. But because we're nervous, there's going to be a time where communism is going to take over different places, and they're not going to have access to information. So the rabbis established these extra day Yom Tov because they foresaw that there would be like different countries that would be cut off, like Yemen was cut off for many years, many centuries from any access to any Jewish different country, so because of that, the rabbis foresaw these things. So they established the extra day Yom Tov because we might, at a certain point, we might lose track and we won't have access because of Zeras Hashmad. So that could be connected to it. I'm just
sure.
that there might be such a concept. That concept is discussed, not specifically to answer this question. It's mentioned like nowadays why we still
Continue.
we have a calendar. So that concept is mentioned. Okay,
But
and the other concept is also because it's minhag avosenu b'yadenu, it became a minhag. Once it became the minhag avosenu b'yadenu, and it's we keep it even though we know what the Yom Tov is. Okay, anyway, so getting back to our Gemara here. So we're on 44a, and we had just mentioned that basically lulav we no longer shake on Shabbos, and the arava ceremony is not done on Shabbos, even if it would fall out on a Shabbos, we would not do the arava ceremony, which would be the Hishana, the Hishanos. And this would be the reason, I guess, why some have a minhag not to say anything about Hishanis on Shabbos, based on the fact that that it's not done anymore on Shabbos. Even in Eretz Yisrael, it's not done. Even place where they would know what day Yom Tov is, they keep one day Yom Tov. They would not do. You don't do the Hishanis. Okay. So now the Gemara says so that's the way we answer those two Mishnahs that they're both talking about in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Just one Mishnah was talking about where you bring your lulav to the Beis Hamikdash because you're nearby, and the other one is talking about you're maybe it's in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, and you're maybe not that far from the Beis Hamikdash, but you are going to be davening in the shul. You're the Gvulin, you're outside of that area where you would plan on going to the Beis Hamikdash, and you know what the Yom Tov is, and it's big Gvulin, and so the minhag, the way it was done was you would bring your lulav before Shabbos. Okay, that was the conclusion.
Question for you.
Yes.
Minhag Lubavitch is not to say any Hoshanot at all.
On Shabbos.
But are there Hoshanot written?
For Shabbos?
In your Siddur.
In our Siddur? So it has 7 days of Hishanos, and whatever day Hishanos was Shabbos falls on Shabbos, we just add that to the next days. So we do 2 the next day.
Okay, because in my Edot HaMizrach Machzor, are Hoshanot separate for Shabbat. There's also a notation that there are some places that don't say it.
Don't say it. Right. Okay. So yeah, different minhagim. It's interesting with all of our desire to keep everyone doing the same thing. We've got 3 different minhagim right here
together.
But that's not. I mean, from what I understood, because I always ask the question: How did the separation between Ashkenaz and Sfarad come about? The answer is that I was told is that there were 12 different minhagim based upon the different tribes, and they did their thing according to whatever their minhag was. So
right,
why wouldn't that be any different?
Right. The question is how that works. Like what's the protocol? What's the policy of the? On the one hand, there's supposed to be lysis going to do. We're supposed to all do one thing. On the other hand, each tribe had their way of serving Hashem. Like it says, Reuven was the concept of Re'iyah, seeing, and Shimon is the concept of Shmiya, hearing. And each tribe had their unique style of how they served Hashem. That's why it says the Nusach Ari, the Ari made his Nusach of davening. He said that his Nusach is a combination of all the Shvatim's Nuschos, the way it would be done. And therefore, it's called a Nusach Klali. It's a general Nusach, and that's why he felt. And I think the Chassam Sofer used to daven Nusach Ari. I think that's what they bring. But anyway, bottom line is that it is interesting that there are different minhagim, different nuschos, as you said, Ezra, and possibly that the different nuschos that we know of are connected to different shvatim. Yeah, it could be that's the origin of the nuschos that we know of, but the Ari tried to somehow like unite them or combine them into more of a general nusach. All right. Anyway, getting back to our Gemara here. So we have the the law that we're not going to be shaking lulav on Shabbos, and we're not going to be doing the rava, the Hishanas on Shabbos. Definitely not with Hishanas. You want to say the stuff, that's a different minhagim, but they definitely don't use the ravas for the Hishanas. Okay. Now the Gemara we're going to start is on 44a. We're going to start with Amar Le Abaye Larava or Laraba. It's on the 6th or 7th line from the top of the page on 44a. 44a. So Abaye tells Rava or Rabba, Maishna lulav the avdinon le shiva. Why is lulav different that we do 7 days of lulav nowadays as a zecher l'migdash, as a commemoration for the Beis Hamikdash? Why do we not do 7 days as a commemoration for the Beis Hamikdash? You have to understand, the Beis Hamikdash, they used to dance around. They would go around the mizbeach once every day of Sukkot, and then on the 7th day they went around 7 times. So they did some type of a ceremony every day of for the Arava in the Beis Hamikdash. Why don't we do that as well? A commemoration of all 7 days. Why do we only make a big deal on Hoshana Rabbah and with Hoshanos, so on, the Aravas? Why don't we do the Arava ceremony every day of Sukkot? So the Gemara says, Amar Le, so he answered him, either Rava or Rabba, that so the first, there's 3 answers over here. The first 2 don't seem to fit. The Gemara doesn't like. The first answer is that, well, the reason is because you have Aravas in your lulav. So you don't really need more of a zecher. It's only a zecher, a commemoration. You have your zecher. You're going to bring your lulav, or the fact that you have your lulav inside, you have Aravas, you have the willows, excuse me. You have willows in the Arava. It's enough. The commemoration of the Beis Hamikdash Arava. So, Amar Le Homisham Lulav Udagavadle. That's not a Arava commemoration. That's a Lulav mitzvah. You're doing the Lulav mitzvah. Yeah, you have Aravas in the inside the bunch, the bundle. But that's not it. So maybe you got to tell me, you know what? Maybe people are supposed to be lifting it up twice. In the second time, you're supposed to have in mind the commemoration for the Arava ceremony in the Beis Hamikdash. Take Aravas. Aravas is a commemoration. So maybe you're going to say that that's what it is, that you lift it up twice. But we see from the way people act every day, no one does that. People aren't doing a double lifting up of the lulav. And therefore, there's no commemoration done on the other days of Sukkot for the Aravas. Only on Hoshana Rabbah is the only day that we really do a commemoration of the Aravas, that we actually lift Aravas. You mean you lift Aravas and the lulav? That's not called a commemoration. That's a part of the lulav. Oh, you're going to lift it twice? People don't do that. Amar Rav. So the Gemara is not happy with that answer. So the Gemara is stuck back with the question of why don't we do a commemoration of our Rava ceremony? Why don't we do that? Why don't we do that 7 days, all 7 days? So next answer. Lulav daraisa of Dinon Shiva. Because lulav is a biblical mitzvah, we do it all 7 days. We commemorate. Zeichel Hamikdash, commemoration of Beis Hamikdash. Arava, the mitzvah of Arava, the Beis Hamikdash, the Rabbanon is a Rabbanon. Lo Yavdinu La Shiva, Zeichel Hamikdash. Not going to do it 7 days as a commemoration of the Beis Hamikdash. It's only the Rabbanon. It didn't require. It doesn't. It's in a certain sense less significant, and the rabbis didn't feel obligated to make a zeicher commemoration for the way it was done with Beis Hamikdash. It was a Rabbanon. So the Gemara says, "What Rabbanon? Laman, who holds it's Rabbanon? Who's this go according to? Elema, if you want to say Labashol, for Abashol, goes according to Abashol. Amar, doesn't he say Arvei Nachal? That the Torah says plural Arvei, and we learned this Gemara before. That came up before in previous maybe earlier in the 30s in the Gemara mentioned over there that it says Arvei Nachal, plural. Why does it say plural? That there's two types of Aravas that are used during this holiday. One is for the Lulav, and one is for the Beis HaMikdash. They did the Arava ceremony. So you see, it's in the Torah. This is a Torah law. This is not a rabbinic law. It says Arvei Nachal Ksiv Shtayim. It says Arvei Nachal, which is two, because Arvei, the plural, Achas Lulav, Achas HaMikdash, one for the Lulav, and one for the Beis HaMikdash. That it was done, this Arava ceremony, this willow ceremony, and therefore it's biblical. Either Rabbanan, and then if you want, you say this follows the rabbis. You want to say it's a rabbinic. But the rabbis hold Hilchos Gemira law. It's a halacha l'maisha b'tina. This is a tradition. That this Rabasi said the name of Rabbi Yochanan, the name of Reb Nechunya. That what? That is three laws that are halacha l'maisha misinais, and they're for whatever reason put together in one. He mentioned these three laws. That all these three are all halacha l'maisha misinais. What are they? The Eser Netiyos, which we've learned a few times. The Eser Netiyos, Eser 10 Netiyos plantings that are in a area called a base saw. There's certain, and it's before Shemitah. Normally, we're not allowed for a month before. Biblically, we're not supposed to be plowing. However, there's a halacha l'maisha misinai that says you're allowed to plow. And because each of these the trees need it, if they're 10 and they're evenly dispersed, and they each of them need a certain amount of, so that measure makes it eligible to just plow the entire field, because each tree needs it for the tree. And the halacha l'maisha misinai permits, even though biblically it's prohibited to plow during that month. And then rabbinically, there's even more prohibitions. But the halacha l'maisha b'sinai comes and permits plowing on the Eser Netiyos before Shemitah. And then Arava, the mitzvah of Arava and the Beis HaMikdash, this mitzvah, the ceremony of the willows, was a halacha l'maisha b'sinai. And u'v'nisach hamayim, and the pouring of the water on the mizbeach, on the altar, on Sukkot, was also halacha l'maisha Misinai, halacha l'maisha misinai. So it comes out that it's not rabbinic. So we just disproved our second answer. The second answer was, why is Arava not celebrated for 7 days, and we only celebrate on Hoshana Rabbah? We all get Aravas, and we commemorate the ceremony in the Beis HaMikdash. What about the other days of Sukkot? The other days of Sukkot also. The Gemara's answer was based on the Midrabanan. The Gemara says, what midrabanan? It's either learned from the word arvei, plural, or it's learned from a halacha l'maisha misinai. Neither of these are called drabanans. In fact, halacha l'maisha misinai is a very strong tradition given to Moshe at Har Sinai. So this is not called drabanan. So therefore, it deserves to be commemorated each day. So the Gemara comes up with a third answer. Elo amar Rav Zvid mishmei de Rava. Rather, Rav Zvid says in the name of Rava, Lulav de Islay Iker ben Atayra Bigvulin, a lulav that does have a source, biblical source, even outside of Israel. So it has a biblical source. So therefore, is considered significant. Avdina Lesheva. So we celebrate, we do a commemoration for all 7 days, because it has a sort of like a source to it, outside of Israel. And it's, in other words, it's biblical in a sense that even outside Israel it has a biblical touch to it. But now, not every day is not biblical, but the first day is biblical outside of the Beis HaMikdash. And so therefore it has a biblical touch to it, or a slight element of biblical strength to it. And therefore we make 7 days, Zeichel HaMikdash, in commemoration of the Beis HaMikdash, 7 days. Arava, but the Arava, which is the Lesla, Iker men HaTorah B'Gvulin, doesn't have any source biblically outside of the Beis HaMikdash. it doesn't have any source, even on the first day. So therefore, loy of dinon shiva zecher lemigdash. We do not do a zecher lemigdash for 7 days because it doesn't have any source outside of the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore the commemoration we're going to be less strict, less going to consider it less significant to obligate us to make more of a commemoration than 1 day. Amar Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish says, "Kayanim bali mumen nechnasin beinu holam v'lamizbech." The kayanim that have a mum, they enter between the ulam, which is the heichal, the holy, the holies, the kodesh, the chamber that entered into the kodesh and into the kodesh hakadoshim, the building of the Beis Hamikdash. So the kohanim, if they're balmum, they're allowed to enter in between the mizbeach in that building. So the mizbeach is outside of the Beis Hamikdash. It's inside the courtyard, and then in between the mizbeach, in other words, to walk on the west side of the mizbeach, that would be where you normally shouldn't be able to walk there. Kohen balmum, a kohen that has a blemish, would not be allowed to walk there normally. But comes along Reish Lakish and he says, kohen balmum nechnasin bein olam lamizbeach kedei lotzis ba'arava, that the kohen balmum would go there in order to be yoitza, the mitzvah of arava. They would actually go there. What do you mean it's prohibited? How would they be allowed to? So if you learn that it's rabbinic prohibition, then fine, it's not a problem. The rabbis permitted it. But how do you explain it if it's biblical? According to the Rambam, it's a biblical. If it's rabbinic, so you could say this mitzvah of arava is biblical. It overrides the rabbinic law, and the rabbis, so it would be permissible for a kohen balmum to fulfill. But question is, how do you fit it with the Rambam that it's a biblical prohibition? So the understanding is that it's asay doicha loisa asay, that the asay of doing arava overrides the negative mitzvah of a kohen that has a blemish. He's not allowed to go in that area, so the asay is doicha loisa asay. So it seems like. At least the commentary seemed to mention this idea. So anyway, bottom line is that Reish Lakish says that a kohen who's a balmum, a kohen that wanted to participate in this arava ceremony, he's allowed to. He can go in that area between the ulam and lamizbeach, and the hak is in order to encircle the mizbeach. So Amalei Rabbi Yochanan mi Amra. Who said this? I don't think that's correct. It's such an obligation that you hold it's a mitzvah on every person. They have to fulfill this mitzvah, and therefore it overrides the concept of balmum not going in that area between the ulam and lamizbeach. You think there's such a mitzvah? It's a chayva. It's an obligatory mitzvah. So the Gemara says. Mi amra ha iu amar da amar Rabasi amar Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yehuda bekas beis chorson as yes Rabbi Nisach Hamayim halacha l'Moshe miSinai. It's halacha l'Moshe miSinai. That arava is an obligation. So the Gemara says, yeah. Ella mi amra benetila. Dilma bizakifa. First of all, what he means is, who says that it's a mitzvah to do this binetila by taking the aravais and walking around? Maybe it's only a mitzvah with zakifa, putting the aravais on the side of the mizbeach, and that is more of a general mitzvah. Rashi over here says that who says netila, where you have to take the arava and it's a obligation on the koyanim to fulfill this mitzvah. Maybe it's a mitzvah of zakifa, and one kohen could put up the aravos by the altar, and not everyone is obligated. So Rashi adds a little understanding here that what the meaning behind these words in the Gemara is not only to say that it's a mitzvah zakifa versus netila, but really what's behind that. Netila means it's a mitzvah on everyone, and zakifa would be a mitzvah only on whoever does it. The one person who does it is doing the zakifa. And so who says you have to do it? So why would you be allowed to Baal Mum to go there? And also me, Amra B'Bali Mum, and who says a Baal Mum would do it? Dilma B'Tmimim, any person who's perfect, doesn't have a blemish, maybe the mitzvah is only on them, not on the Bali Mumin. So therefore, the Yochanan seems to disagree that it doesn't apply to a kohen balmum, and therefore definitely a kohen balmum should not be going in that area where he's not allowed. The Gemara now says, Itmar, it was stated, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, they argue. Chad Omar.
Okay. You have everything you need?
Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, they argue. Chad Omar, one of them says, Arava Yesoid Neviim. One of them says that Arava is established by the Neviim, this willow ceremony. The Neviim, Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi, the people, they were from the Anshe Knesset Agdola, and they were miyasid the mitzvah. They established the mitzvah of Arava, and this was when they were going up to be build the second Beis Hamikdash. So Ezra made certain takonos, and according to this understanding, it was done by Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi. These Anshe Knesset Agdola, they established this mitzvah of the Arava mitzvah. In other words, the mitzvah of Arava, which we'll soon see what this means. Chad Amar Arava minag Neviim. The one and the other opinion, either Rabbi Yochanan or Rabbi Shua ben Levi, holds that this is a minag of Neviim, that they were noyeg. It's not an obligation of each person. It's more of a minag. It's a minag Neviim. So they were noyeg this, that the people should do this. It's like a custom that they accustom people to do. But Rashi says the difference is when you need to say a bracha. Can you say v'tzivanu? This really does open up a whole discussion here, because this is the source, one of the sources of the debate of Rosh Chodesh bracha on saying halal, on half halal on Rosh Chodesh. Do you say a bracha? Can you say a bracha? Asher kedeshanu b'mitzvaysav v'tzivanu. Can you say Hashem commanded us to say half halal on Rosh Chodesh? Or did the rabbis establish it? No, it's a minhag. Can you say a bracha on a minhag? And here you have the Ashkenazim say, yeah, based on Tosfos, the Rambam holds, no, you don't say a bracha. And that's this is the famous argument if you say a bracha on half halal. So here, regarding the case of Arava, the ceremony of Arava, of the willows, same thing. If you hold it's a yesod, according to Rashi's understanding here is that if you hold that it's a yesod neviim, so it's a takana of the rabbis, it deserves a bracha. You could say a bracha. Wait, Hashem commanded me to do it. The rabbis commanded me to do it. Yeah, but Hashem told me that I have to listen to the rabbis, and because it's a mitzvah like they don't go away from the way what the rabbis told you. So if the rabbis established it, that I can say a bracha. Rabbinic law, I can say a bracha. But if it's a minhag, then so Rashi understands that that's what the Gemara is saying here. That if it's a yesod, that if it's yesod neviim, it means you say a bracha. If it's a minhag neviim, it means you don't say a bracha. That would be the difference here, and it's not. not you can't really say everyone agrees with that because it's a discussion about the minhagim. Can you say a bracha on a minhag? And here Taisus has a discussion and so on, and maybe we'll talk about it after Pesach. But anyway, so the Gemara says, "Tistayim de Rabbi Yochanan hu damar Yesoid Neviim." It would make sense to say that Rabbi Yochanan holds it's a Yesoid Neviim. It's established by the Neviim. Damar Rabbi Avo, I'm Rabbi Yochanan, Arava Yesoid Neviim hu. Because we have a statement from Rabbi Avo. Rabbi Avo quoted Rabbi Yochanan. He said it's a Yesoid Neviim. Okay, I can't argue with that. Tistayim, yeah, sounds right. Must be Rabbi Yochanan. So if there's an argument, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, one of them says it's Yesoid Neviim. And we have another statement from Rabbi Avo that he says that Rabbi Yochanan says you say it must be Rabbi Yochanan who says you say it must be Rabbi Shua ben Levi who says it's a minhag deviyah. The Gemara says I'm only Rabbi Zedra or Rabbi Avo. So Rabbi Zedra asked Rabbi Avo, "Me Amar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi, did Rabbi Yochanan really say that it's a Yesod Neviim established?" Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Mechunya Ishbakas base courts and Ezra says Arava Nitzcham. I'm Halachah Moshe Messina. I thought Arava is a Halachah Moshe Messina. So what do you mean that this is Yesod Neviim? Isn't it Halacha L'Moshe Sinai? So the Gemara says, he got quiet for a moment, and he wanted to think. Well, what does he answer? And then V'amar, and then he said, it's of course it's Halacha L'Moshe Sinai. Shakchum, the Yidden, when they were in Golus Bavel. And when they were exiled by the Babylonians, they actually forgot about it. Shakrum v'chazru, so the prophets came back, and the Yistum, and they established this. Rashi says al pi hadibor, like they had a prophecy that this was meant to be established again through prophecy that they got, that this was a mitzvah that was forgotten. So this is what Rabbi Yochanan means when he says that the Nevi'im, the Yesod Nevi'im, it's really a Halacha L'Moshe Sinai, but it was forgotten, and then it was remembered, and it was established. Well, Rabbi Yochanan, did Rabbi Yochanan really say that it was forgotten? But Rabbi Yochanan, doesn't Rabbi Yochanan say that it was talking to the people of Eretz Yisrael, and he said, Dil Choim, Omri, I used to say that the Torah is really yours, that you people are the bigger scholars because you didn't have to go through exile from your land, and so you didn't get farshmutz with the exile. Dilahoi, but really dilahoini. Now I see that it's really the people of Bavel. They are the ones who really understand Torah, and this had to do with Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana was when he saw Rav Kahana had to run away from Eretz Yisrael, and he had to run away from Bavel. He came to Eretz Yisrael, and Yochanan was seeing the greatness of Rav Kahana. He says, "You people in Bavel, you people really know Torah." Wow. And so what he's saying is that Rabbi Yochanan said, you people didn't forget nothing in Golus Bavel. You people are the scholars, the best scholars. You got everything there. You didn't lose anything from your Golus. So the Gemara says, like kasha, it's not a kasha. And now we turn the page. That the Khan here, that mitzvah sarava is halacha l'moshe Sinai is b'mikdash. The Khan here, where it says the prophets established it, that is big vulin. That's where it's considered a this was pretty obvious. Probably some of you thought of this answer, that when we said it's Yesod Nevi'im, it means after the base of Mikdash is destroyed, it's in Big Vulin, or outside of the base of Mikdash, or it's Yesod Nevi'im. Now, The Gemara now says, Amar Rabami, Arava tzricha shir. Does Arava needs, Rabami says Arava needs a shir. Ve'ena nitelas ela b'fnei atzma. And so this mitzvah of Arava, how does it perform? So the Gemara says that first of all, it needs a shear. It's not enough to have just a tiny little piece of an Arava. It has a shear. There's a measurement. Ve'ena nitelas ela b'fnei atzma. And it has to be only taken on its own. You can't have something else with it. And has to be recognizable. It's mitzvah Arava. You don't want to take it if it's mixed with other items. That would be a problem because it's not recognizable. You know, don't tie it together with other things. Now, the third halacha, and you can't be yotze with the using the arava that's in the lulav to fulfill this mitzvah. So the Gemara says, even Damar Mar, since Master said, Rabami, that in tells of it can't be tied together with other things. So Pshita then obviously can't be fulfilled the mitzvah with that rava that's tied in the lulav. It's tied with other things. So why did your second halacha makes the third halacha redundant? There's no need to tell us the third halacha. If it has to be taken on its own, so then why do you have to tell me that you're not yotze with the arava shabalov? Of course you're not. You can't do arava when it's tied with other things. So the Gemara says, Pshita, they not be about arava shabalov. Of course you can't use the arava. The Gemara says, Ma'alatema hani mili. I would have thought that heicha deloi agbe heicha deloi agbe v'hadar agbe. That I'm sorry, Ma'alatema hani mili. I would have thought hani mili. When does this apply? This law that you can't take it with any other item. That's that's if you only lifted it once and not a second time. But if you lifted it once, and you went back and lifted it a second time, then I would say maybe you are yotze. You would think, at least, to say that maybe I would have thought to say that you are fulfilling the mitzvah. Why? Because now it's recognizable that it's for the mitzvah of arava. So the Gemara says, Emaloi. I would say that this doesn't apply and you could fulfill the mitzvah. So Kamash Malana comes and lets us hear Rav Ami by saying the third halacha that you are not yotze with the arava in the lulav if you wave it, if you shake it twice. Rav Chisda says, Chisda Amar Rav Yitzchok, in the name of Rav Yitzchok, a person could fulfill his mitzvah of arava with the arava in the lulav, and the understanding is that he's going on the previous discussion, meaning we just said that the only thought you would have that you could fulfill it is if you lifted it twice. On this, Rav Chisda says, if you lift it twice, he said in the name of Yitzchok, then you could fulfill the mitzvah with the arava of the lulav. And let's go up to Amar Idol. Let's just do two more lines. What is the shear of the arava? How big does that to fulfill the mitzvah? What is the measurement? So the Gemara says, Amar Nachman shleisha ba'diyolin lachin. You need 3. 3 fresh branches, lachin, moist branches. So 3 bade olin lachin. With fresh leaves. Alin is leaf. So it's 3 bade stems or branches. Alin with leaves. Lachin that are moist. Rav Sheshes says afilu ola echad ubad echad. Even one leaf in one stem. The Gemara thinks it means separate. Ola echad ubad echad salkadaitach. You think one leaf separate from the stem, and elaima afilu ola echad ubad echad. What he means is that Rav Sheshes says that for the mitzvah of arava, you need one leaf that's on one stem. You only need one leaf that's one stem that has one leaf on it. So it's a machlekes Rav Nachman if you need 3, or Rav Sheshes if you need 1. And
a leaf.
But also, what?
It's a leaf. One is a leaf.
Thank you. What would I do without you, David? Thank you. So if you have one leaf, on one, according to Rav Sheshes, that's good enough on one step. So it's interesting. We have a minhag, of course, to use 5, but maybe we'll talk about that as well after Pesach. But the Mishnah Berurah brings it as well. So I'm not sure. I think the Ashkenazim also do 5, even
Yes.
though
Yes.
there are sources that 3 is good or 1. Anyway, but the interesting thing is the Gemara doesn't really clarify about also the measurement, like how long does it have to be? So it's a machlokes if it has to be the same size as the arava of the lulav, and that's why the Gemara doesn't mention it, because that's the Gemara like assumes that, or is it really doesn't have to be that way, and really it could be it doesn't have a minimum size. But anyway, maybe we'll talk about that as well. We're gonna stop here. Sei gesund, everyone. Have a kosher and freilich Pesach.
All the best to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rebbe. Have a good Shabbos, and everybody have a wonderful Yontif.
Amen. Likewise.
What are we going to do
Rabbi.
next week? Anybody need a house cleaned? No.
I always offer, if anyone wants to, give a share and people want it, please email me. I'll set it up. All right. Good
They
job.
have to want for food. Somebody gives a share.
Someone could want to give, someone wants to take, whatever you want.
Sei gesund. Thank you, Rebbe.
Okay.